Hello there. One of the ideas that keeps resurfacing over the years is what we call Theodore Roosevelt's arena speech, or the man in the arena speech. And it's a potent quote that actually comes from a much larger speech that Roosevelt gave in 1910 called Citizenship in a Republic. And while there are many interesting points in that speech, the man in the arena is the most famous of those points. And it's really a commentary on what Roosevelt thinks constitutes a meaningful life. So let me read the quote to you, and then we'll break it down a little bit and see what we can take away from it. To begin, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And so I think just at a surface level, we can see that Roosevelt is talking about what constitutes a meaningful life. And let's pull those out. So he's saying a meaningful life is where you have high goals and you set out to achieve them, where you make mistakes, or rather you're willing to make mistakes, because, as he said, there is no effort without error and shortcoming. So set high goals, be willing to make the mistakes that are necessary on the path to achieving that goal, and recognize that it is the striving that counts, not the achievement of the goal. The achievement of the goal is nice, but according to Roosevelt, what constitutes a meaningful life is the striving. So going out there with your high goals, failing again and again, but always getting back up, picking yourself up by your bootstraps, and going again. Maybe making revisions to the goals as you realize what is possible and impossible, but continually striving for those goals. That is what makes a meaningful life. Another important point to take away from this comes from the end. He says, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So what I think Roosevelt is trying to convey here is that we don't want to be among those who live safely. And I don't mean go out and take risks, but that those who never challenge themselves, who never push themselves, who try to do great things. And what constitutes a great thing may mean finishing high school or going to college or becoming a welder or starting your own business. That varies depending on who you are and where you are. But to set up something great for yourself, the highest goal you can set for yourself, the greatest good you think you can do in your life, and then setting out to achieve it. And that ties right in with the beginning, where he talks about how it's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or how the doer of deeds could have done them better. Roosevelt is saying, unless you see someone in the arena who's in their own arena, because each of us has our own, because we have different goals, that unless you see someone whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, you shouldn't pay attention to what they're saying. They're on the sidelines. They're a backseat driver or an armchair general, or, as Roosevelt said, a cold and timid soul. You need to pay attention to those who are actually striving, who are moving towards their goals, not those who are playing it safe and living a comfortable life where they are not being challenged. So, what are the takeaways? Go beyond your comfort zone. A meaningful life, a significant life, is not determined by whether or not you meet your goals, but that you have goals and you're working hard to achieve them. That you need to be careful about who you take advice from. The cold and timid souls who haven't actually tried to achieve anything are not going to be able to give you good advice. So ignore their advice and take the advice from people who have gone before you, who have sought to have a meaningful life, who are striving to achieve their goals. And I think that covers the largest points. There is a little bit more in here, but we'll save that for another time. As I was preparing for this, I realized that many of the other points in this speech have similar takeaways, in that it would be helpful to talk about those as well. And so sometime after this goes up, I will continue working on this and preparing to talk about some of the other points that Roosevelt makes as to how do we lead significant lives and some of the other interesting tangentially related points that he makes. So I hope that you can take some of what Roosevelt wrote down over 100 years ago and use it to make your life better. And until next time, cheers.